From the KMNN studios, this is the Kids Morning News Network.
Good morning. It's January 11th, 2024. You know what that means. National Step in a Puddle and Splash Your Friends Day. I'm not sure who made that up or why they put it in January when a lot of the puddles are frozen. But if you can, go for it. Welcome to the Kids Morning News Network. I'm Alex in the KMNN studio in New York. And if you were trying to listen yesterday, I'm sorry, we had a power outage here in the studio and there was no podcast. You can thank all that crazy weather we've been having. There are still hundreds of thousands of people who don't have power. Okay, there's going to be more weather coming, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Imagine this. It's 1935. Airplanes are still a new thing. There are no cell phones, no GPS, no radar, no jet engines, just these little propeller airplanes that you pretty much have to look out the window to see where you're going. Pilots are these brave daredevils. By 1935, people have flown across the Atlantic Ocean, they've flown across the United States. There have even been a few flights across the Pacific Ocean between California and Hawaii, but they're like expeditions. There's a whole crew. You have to have at least a pilot and a navigator to figure out where you're going, and it takes more than a day, about 26 hours, sitting in one of these little planes, and it's dangerous. A bunch of planes try it and they disappear without a trace. But because back in 1935 these pilots are daredevils, they keep trying to fly it, and they keep trying to fly it alone. So on this day, January 11th, 1935, one brave pilot takes off alone from Hawaii trying to get to California. Now they're flying this plane that's wood. It's got a wood frame covered in sheets of plywood, all held together with nails and glue. Their little plane has one engine with a propeller in front, and this engine is so big it blocks out most of the view from this tiny little windshield they've got, and they can barely see where they're going. People who fly this plane say basically you can look up at the sky, but you can't really see anything in front of you or below you. But they make it. The trip takes 19 hours, but this pilot becomes the first person to fly alone across the Pacific Ocean. Of course, it's no big deal. This is a famous pilot. One more record. She's already got a bunch of records. Her name is Amelia Earhart. And the Pacific flight was actually one of the last records she set, because 2 years later, again over the Pacific Ocean, she disappeared while she was trying to fly around the world. And it's still a mystery even today. All right, time for the daily riddle. Tuesday's riddle was, I get wet while I'm drying. What am I? Answer, a towel. All right, today's riddle, hopefully a little bit tougher. The more of me you take, the more of me you leave behind. What am I? The more of me you take, the more of me you leave behind. What am I? Answer on Friday. That's tomorrow. A team of scientists from China and Australia say they've figured out why the largest ape ever to walk the earth went extinct about 200,000 years ago. Gigantopithecus has been called the real King Kong. It wasn't quite as big as King Kong, but it was big enough. From fossils, we can tell that it grew to around 10 feet tall, and it weighed over 600 pounds. That's one big ape. A couple of million years ago, there were plenty of these living in what is now southern China. But then they started dying out. And the question scientists have asked is why? Well, now they say they figured it out. Gigantopithecus, this huge ape, ate fruit, and only fruit. And when the climate was warmer 2 million years ago, there was plenty of fruit. But then things started to cool down a little bit, and you started to see seasons. So it was warm part of the year, not as warm the rest of the year. There was less fruit. And by studying fossil Gigantopithecus teeth, scientists can tell that the apes started eating other things like twigs and bark, but it had evolved to eat fruit, and it couldn't survive on a new diet. And because it was so big, it had a hard time traveling to places or fruit still grew. And so it became extinct. What would that be like? An ape 10 feet tall, 600 pounds. That'd be something.
Whoa!
All right, back to the weather. It's been a crazy few days, and if you're in the West, it's still coming. Especially the Northwest, the mountains, Montana, Idaho. Snow, lots of snow. But that's what happens there in the mountains in the wintertime. But still, big storms, lots of wind. Be careful. The rest of the country, you're going to see a lot of clouds, except in the southeast and Texas and California where it should be sunny. But that's going to change because this big storm that's up in the northwest is going to push its way down into the southeast, into Texas. The next few days there might be wet and windy, kind of crazy like it's been up here in the northeast. All right, that's our Thursday show. Thanks for listening. From the KMNN newsroom in New York, I'm Alex, signing off.